Yo, what's going on people? It's your boy Huncho, back at you again with another video. Now, I cover quite a lot of violent crime on the channel, including some horrific murders, but sometimes I come across stories that are quite disturbing to say the least. This next story we're about to get into has been highly suggested by subscribers in the comment section over the past day or so, and upon researching the story I must admit was quite taken back when I seen the age of the people involved, and believe me, the incident which has taken place is going to chill a lot of you to the core. On the 16th of January 2020 at around 11:45 PM, 53-year-old pharmaceutical plant worker Robert Wilson was reported to have confronted a group of teenagers who were thought to have been trespassing on the grounds of his workplace, that being Thornton Ross pharmaceutical plant. Now we'll save the details for the court hearings, but let me just tell you that when police arrived at the scene, Kiyran Earnshaw was said to have been trying to decapitate Robert. Emergency workers tried to save him, but it was too late and he was pronounced dead at the scene. John Badejo was said to have intervened to try and save Robert and had suffered serious injuries. He was rushed to Leeds General Infirmary where he went on to recover. Kiyran and at the time 15-year-old Luke Gaukroger were arrested after trying to flee the scene. 3 other males and a female were also arrested, and they were all being held on suspicion of murder and wounding with intent. 2 days later the charges would be dropped against all the others involved, which left Kiyran and Luke to be left in police custody, and a day after that Kiyran went on to be charged with murder and wounding with intent, while Luke was charged with murder and possession of an offensive weapon. So after being charged, the pair would go on to make some court appearances, and a trial date was set for July 13th, 2020, after they pleaded not guilty to the charges brought against them. At some point in June though, the pair would go on to plead guilty to all charges brought against them, so a trial wasn't to go ahead. But of course, if you're watching this video right now, then you'll know that the case has recently been wrapped up, and in that court hearing, in-depth details emerged, and let me just tell you, this is one roller coaster of a story. Yesterday in court, the prosecution would go on to explain the short moments leading up to Robert's death, and he would go on to say, Robert Wilson was alerted when Luke, supported by Kiyran, went into the car park to throw up, and at that point, the factory workers didn't expect any trouble due to the young age of the defendants. Then the pair's female friend tried to get them to leave, as she had heard a warning play over the speaker system and had seen members of staff coming out of the building. At that point, the 3 began to walk towards the exit before Luke had turned and ran back out of sight towards the left. He had refused to leave the scene because he had lost his knife and was looking for it, and it appeared at that point he didn't realise he dropped it and it had been taken off him. The female then tried to help him look for his knife, and the 2 other male friends made their way towards the exit. As Luke was looking for his knife, it would be at this point that Kiyran had bumped into Robert Wilson and said that his mother had worked at the factory and that it was a public car park where he could go and smoke if he wished to. At that point, tensions were rising but no violence had taken place, and then the female friend ran away from the car park. After this, staff continued to try to get them to leave, and then Luke said he lost his phone, so Luke, alongside 2 members of staff, went to go and find it, with one of them turning on an iPhone light to search the area. Members of staff found a phone on the ground but left it there because it had a cracked screen, and John was worried that the staff would get the blame, and so they left it without touching it. It would be at this point that Robert decided to call Securiplex, which I believe was the security for the building, but Kiyran thought he was filming them, and at that point Kiyran had flashed the handle of the samurai sword which he had in his waistband. CCTV footage was then played to the court of the murder taking place. A description of the murder was written and given to reporters, and this is what was said to have happened. Kiyran produces the samurai sword fully from his waistband, and Robert tries to run, but Kiyran strikes Robert. John moves in to stop him, but this caused an injury to his hand, which caused him to back off. John and another member of staff run away, as the pair then begin to attack Robert with the sword. Kiyran is then seen grabbing Robert by the coat and is then pulled around the car park. At this point, his colleagues had fled for their lives despite them wanting to help out. They had ran into a nearby waterway to try and get away and get help. John would go on to say, it was the only sensible thing that I could have done. They had no hope or no means of helping Mr. Wilson. After being dragged around the car park, Robert had managed to get to his feet and ran before collapsing onto his front in a parking bay area. Kiyran then stamped on his head around 6 times before stabbing him in the chest with full force. Luke then shouted, pass me the shank, pass me the shank. But Kiyran proceeded to stab him a further 4 times in the back using full force while using both hands. Luke then took the sword and gave Robert 11 full force stab blows starting on his back and moved towards his head, and then handed the sword back to Kiyran. At this point, Kiyran then used a chopping motion to hit Robert's body with the sword around 5 times. They then left but ran back towards Robert to go through his pockets. After doing this, they then pulled his coat off him. After they had taken his jacket, Kiyran then chopped at his body a number of times again, then passed the sword to Luke, where he went on to stab him a further 10 times. After inflicting all of these stab wounds on Robert Wilson, they didn't stop there, because it would now be at this point that Kiyran had attempted to cut Robert's head off. Luke then joined in an effort to saw the head from the body. They then move away from the body, and CCTV footage shows them tired from the horrific act they had just taken part in. They took a very short break but was back at it again when Luke had started to stab him, and then Kiyran continued to try and cut his head off but failed, so went back to stabbing his body. At that point, the pair had been tussling for control of the weapon. Luke then appears to shout, "Get his head, I want to cut his head. Kai, I want to cut his head." To this, Kiyran stabs Robert a further 4 times and then continues to try and cut his head off, while Luke was jumping over his body, and he even fell on Robert at one point. While trying to cut his head off, police then arrived at the scene and the pair made a run for it. Before the murder, an attempted decapitation took place. As you guys know, but Robert had attempted to call security Secureplex, but the pair thought he'd been recording them. In court, this call was played, and these were Robert's last words before he had been murdered. Kiyran says, "Fucking come here, videoing me man and shit." Robert then replies, "No one's videoing you." Kiyran goes on to say, "Fucking videoing man and shit, yeah? Fucking videoing man and shit, what?" Robert then responds, "No one's videoing you." A cry out in pain is heard before Robert is heard screaming, "John, John, bastard." He cried out in pain again before saying, "What the?" He then cried out in pain again and said, "Please stop." Kiyran said, fuck you, recording me, yeah?" Robert then cried out in pain again. But Kiyran continued, "Don't fucking record me, yeah?" Robert then pleads, "Alright lads, alright, I'll let you go." Luke is then heard saying, "Pass me the shank." Robert continues to plead with them by saying, "I'll let you go lads." Luke then repeats, "Pass me the shank." Again, Robert pleads, "I'll let you go." Luke continues, "Pass me the shank." Robert is then heard crying out in pain again, and then Luke says, pass me the shank, yo Chip, fuck you." Robert cried out in pain again and said, "Bastard," and then calls for John again. That had all taken place within a short space of time, and then the security operative takes the call, and there's a muffled sound that starts coming from Robert's phone, where you can hear Kiyran say, yo, did you just... Then it goes inaudible, "Me, fucking cunt, fucking..." Inaudible. The two are then heard talking with each other, with Luke mainly asking for the samurai sword and Kiyran continuing to shout about being recorded. Groans are then heard from Robert, and finally Luke is heard saying, "I want to cut his head, Kai, I want to cut his head, just pass me that, pass me that." When police arrived at the scene, they witnessed, of course, Kiyran attempting to cut Robert's head off, and when police gave chase after the pair, Kiyran threw the samurai sword away and had to be tasered twice before being arrested. He was able to tell police officers his name despite being described as drunk, slurring his words and asking why he was being arrested. He then pleaded his innocence and complained of police harassment. Upon searching him, he was found with a single tablet in a plastic bag inside a bag he had been wearing over his shoulder. When put into the back of the van, he had banged his head on the cage all the way to the station, and when he arrived at the station, he had been snoring. When awoken by officers, he told them he had taken cocaine and Xanax. Upon searching him at the station, police also recovered a small black-handled knife, believed to have been the knife dropped by Luke, which he was looking for earlier on before the attack. When Luke had attempted to escape police, he tried to scale a fence, but Parva spray had been used on him twice before he was arrested. When police told him he was being arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, he appeared surprised and went on to say, "Murder?" A sample taken from him 24 hours later showed he had alcohol and cannabis in his system. The post-mortem examination results were shown in court, and it was heard that there were 100 sharp force injuries to the body, mainly head, neck and upper body. These were mainly from slash and chop movements, but there were also some stab movements. There was damage to the skull, the jugular vein, both lungs, aorta, liver, spleen and bowels, and there was only one defensive injury to the left thumb, indicating he had been unable to put up any defense. While in police custody, it emerged that on the 1st of May 2020, before they had went on to plead guilty to the charges brought against them, an A4 piece of paper and a sealed envelope was seized from a room occupied solely by 15-year-old Luke. The A4 piece of paper appeared to have been a flyer given to residents advising them of a washing rota at the institution, but Luke had decided to write rap lyrics on there and this is what he wrote. Dip him, leave him dripping, now my shoes floating in a pool. Burn my kicks, burn my cowins after, burn that fool. Get round there trying to turn man ghost, yo, I'm trying to turn man to a ghost. How's he 18 and still fucking girls that go to school that night? I was chilling with Kai, we was trying to bill it, but we had to kill it. Big man tried beefing, so we had to kill it. We was wetting my man up for like 10 whole minutes, chefing him and feds turned up, so we had to turn. Yeah, we tried to tow, but we got nicked on scene with a big full of cho. Pepper spray and taser twice for Kai, fuck the popo. Free me and the guys before we wet man up, we won't think twice. In the jailhouse I'm nice, can't wait till I'm free, drinking Henny with ice. 16 days later, another detention officer seized 7 pieces of paper from his room containing more lyrics. A song titled No Remorse had the following lyrics. Sitting in the dock trying to show remorse, but I don't feel it, and I can't even talk. Can't chat to the judge like I'm sorry I was too fucked, didn't mean to catch a body. In all honesty, I wouldn't mean it though, fake apology, just to be at home, it wouldn't work though. Cause I killed a guy with a big long Sammy, not a kitchen knife. My Cody sat up in Doncaster. Free my guy Kiyran, he ain't no actor, he got nicked with class A's as well. Both bagged on the scene, but we won't tell, no we won't never snitch on each other. To you he's a psycho, to me he's my brother, and trust me, it worked the other way around. If I heard he had beef, I'd put a pagan in the ground. But now I'm just sitting in the pen looking at 15, won't see him again, or I might get hit with less, but still 10 years is a fucking stress. If it gets dropped down to manslaughter, get hit with a 10. A further rap was found on that occasion and contained the lyrics. Why do they talk? I ain't non-violent, interview no words, that's silent. Only ever said 2 words to the trident, no comment. They're asking about knifings. Got bagged for a section 18, but not long after bagged for an M. Now I'm sat with the lifers. Legging Weatherby pen, pissed off sat in my cell. I'm still on remand, me I got on the scene. I know I ain't got a chance, I ain't gonna beat this case. You should have seen my dad's face. Watching CCTV, he didn't want to believe it was me, but he knows it was his son. Feds say I show no remorse, I show no emotion. It was I that got him fried, it was me that got him bun. Got round there for fun, stepped with her, but I wish for her. Yeah, I wish for life sweet so I could burst at these necks, so I could get them down from a range, Call of Duty, take an aim, saying that ting and inflict pain. Swing that ting and inflict damage, watch them run and lose balance. On the floor, that's red all splattered. I mean, it looks more like had a pull on my guy's tool. Please don't make me lose my cool, I can't possibly feel cruel. My duty I'll inject, I don't give a fuck about the feds. Now your mum's feeling stressed cause her son's looking all wet. Now I'm sitting in jail forgetting about you all. Next on the road, all of you think you're bad, but you ain't bad on your own. Step into my zone, I'll show you that I'm on smoke. I'll be dishing out multiple pokes. You won't like me when I'm mad like Hawk, bro. I'll show you my maximum smoke blade. Went in and out, made him choke. Pupils dilate like he's on coke. That last sound he made is a croak. I heard him struggling for his last breath when he gave up. Said wagwan to death, I was still stabbing up the guy's chest, laughing cause my knife worked the best. Sammy made the Don hit the deck. No, Catman was chopping at his neck. His man almost attached his head. Can only imagine how much he bled, over 100 wounds up in his body. That's what a Fed told me and my Donny. On my life I'm spitting the truth, I don't tell no lies in the booth. Defending Luke, Mr. Greeny said that his client's quote-unquote dreadful lyrics may appear to glorify the murder, but he expressed remorse to a probation officer and in a letter to his instructing solicitors. He said the lyrics were written by him, but he didn't realise that it would be presented to the court. The defence went on to say the lyrics were a way of working through his immature feelings and there was no evidence that he had published the lyrics, which he would have tried to do if he was trying to glorify the murder. After this hearing yesterday, the pair were both handed life sentences. Luke's to do a minimum of 16 years and 8 months, while Kiyran has to do a minimum of 22 years. DCI Mark Bowes of the Homicide and Major Inquiry Team would go on to say this.
My investigation team has seen in all our years of service such a level of violence against a defenceless person. Thankfully, incidents of this nature are rare occurrences in our society today. Neither individual has shown any remorse for the offences that they have committed back on the 16th of January this year. Throughout the investigation process, the family of Mr. Wilson and Mr. Badejo and friends have shown nothing but courage, and I have nothing but admiration for the way in which they have held themselves. I sincerely hope that today the sentences imposed bring some measure of comfort to the family, friends and wider communities. Thank you.
Now honestly, I really don't know what to say about this one, and again, when I read exactly what happened, I just couldn't really believe it, and it really just goes to show you that in a matter of seconds, an argument can get so fueled by anger that you can go on to be killed, and in this case, almost decapitated. Robert was literally just doing his job, and in fact the reason why Kiyran got so mad at Robert was for recording him, and he wasn't even doing that, he was ringing the security. We'll never truly know the reasoning behind the murder, but it was probably a mix of hypermasculinity because of the female that was around them, and of course them being under the influence. But the fact that this kid really went on to write rap lyrics about it just shows you how lost he is, and he really needs guidance in his life. You have to imagine now both of these will be spending more time in jail than they've been alive, and you have to really let that sink in, because this is the reality of when you do something like this. Now I do want to take this time out just to say rest in peace to Robert. Being murdered is one thing and is extremely sad, but to die the way that he did and the pain that he suffered, I really wouldn't wish that upon anyone. So I do want to take this time out again and just say rest in peace, and my condolences are with his family at this current time. But let me know what you guys think of this in the comment section below. Give the video a little like, and if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Huncho, and I'm out.